The Creative Well, a poem by Matthew Donald. A rhyming poem, because I'm an amateur and I don't get poems that don't rhyme. Performed by Matthew Donald and Matthew David. The rooster crowed, and the sun's rays shone, and the rider stirred in his bed, all alone. His blankets checkered and colored like a clown, his walls covered with posters that should have really been torn down. The rider stretched in his sheets and rose out of bed, with not a single creative idea in his head. He sighed with gloom, and yet said with zeal,
"I'll surely have some ideas after a meal."
He went downstairs and got himself a bowl, and ate sugary cereal until his spleen was full. He wiped his lips, and just before he arose, his mom yelled,
"Don't forget to wear your big boy clothes!"
The rider sighed, his tone full of shame.
"Mom, I know I can play the adult game. I'll be moving out soon,"
he declared with a huff.
"You're 35!
Mom said.
That dude can't come soon enough!"
"Someday my books will make loads of cash, and then I'll be out of here in a dash."
Yet despite the writer's determined cry, his creative well was still currently dry. He put on big boy clothes and walked out the door. He could find some ideas. He had done it before. He took a walk outside. He had a bagel with cream cheese. He got distracted by a sale of high-definition TVs. Finally, he sat down at a local cafe. Here he planned to sit for the rest of the day.
"Where are the ideas?"
he yelled, his nostrils aflare.
"I need some ideas! Where are they? Where?"
He thought of all the countless books he had read as a kid, before video games and the internet overtook reading as it did. He remembered films and shows with all their big-name stars, about dragons and drama, and even trips to Mars. The writer pulled out his laptop, ready to get started, yet there was nothing in his mind, not even half-hearted.
"I need some ideas,"
he mused.
"I need a fresh supply."
Yet despite his yearning, his creative well was still dry. He knew he couldn't sit still. No ideas could be formed now. Yet he felt like a failure. He needed to write somehow. He set down his laptop and looked at the people around, and decided to observe them, see if ideas could be found.
"I want a cookie,"
a kid said.
"I want that sugar-covered piece that'll give me diabetes like my Aunt Patrice."
"Just one,"
the kid insisted.
"Mom doesn't have to know." "There's a Squirtle in here,"
said another, playing Pokemon Go. So many stories lay before our humble writer. Seeing such sights made his day a little brighter. Yet despite this brief but welcome high, his creative well was still currently dry.
"I can't believe this,"
he muttered.
"I feel so inept. I'm no writer at all."
The forlorn writer wept.
"What kind of creator gets stuck in such a funk? None,"
he declared.
"My writing dream has sunk."
He put his head on the table and closed his eyes, thinking about his lowly and embarrassing demise. He was a little speck of nothing in an uncaring world. Then the bagel disagreed with him, and he promptly hurled. After cleaning up the mess and apologizing to the owner, he walked through the park, his mind as empty as a stoner. He thought about the struggles he had to endure. He thought he was a writer. He had been so sure.
"This is always how it is,"
he sighed.
"One day I'm on top, and then this big huge obstacle puts my plans to a stop. I might as well be an imp without a weapon or clue, facing off against a dragon with scales blazing blue."
Saying this, he stopped, his eyes widening at the thought. Could it be good fortune that fate had finally brought? He imagined the fight of said imp against his foe, darting under the dragon's legs, grabbing tools on the go. He choreographed a whole scene and then a setup to go along. The writer's eyes lit up, his heart alight with a happy song.
"An idea!"
he proclaimed, his voice so elated and loud, a flock of pigeons pooped onto a nearby crowd. Racing back to the cafe, he got out his laptop once more, and ignored the other stares after his last visit to this store. He wrote the beginnings of a fantasy tale, and so, at last, the creative well began to overflow. This is the story of just one writer, yes, but also of all writers, if I may digress. So if you can't think of anything at all to write, remember this tale about a fellow writer's plight. Will you have bad days? Yes, but there's no reason to fret. If you give up now, an idea is all you're ever gonna get. But if you keep at it and write, eventually you'll have a book. And then maybe others will want to take a look.
Welcome, fellow nerds, to another episode of The Ritwit, the show where co-hosts of many shapes and sizes struggle to shove square pegs into round holes, yet you keep listening.
And we appreciate that you keep listening, listeners. We really do.
We really do. Thanks for coming back and dealing with our crap.
Yes. We have listeners from every continent except for Antarctica. I mean, unless there could be some scientists who's really bored.
Maybe there are people who have been to Antarctica for research purposes that are listening to this podcast at some point or other. Just not on.
In which case, please save the world. Our government isn't doing it, so let's
not get into that too much. But you know, it's. Of many shapes and sizes, because not all of us are big and in a round shape like I claim to be. Anyhow, we're back with our set. More on fan fiction. You can already see from the title, this one's going to be fun for us to talk about. But
and we must apologize also in advance that these next two episodes are actually going to be a little short. Because we're actually pressed for time.
Yeah,
you're pressed for time, David.
But I'm sorry. You can pin the blame on me if you want, but
it's okay. It's good that you have a life. It's more than I can say.
Before we get into that, though, our usual segment here. So, what we at the Ritwit have writ. You go first.
What have we writ? Yes, what I have writ is, well, as well as work on Tesla-Nauts, I've managed to procure a contract with a marketing agency to help promote Megazoic. Yay! So, they're going to help me get the book to various audiences I would have never had before, like writing groups, blogs, websites, libraries, and hundreds of other specific locations. They'll recommend it to people, have me do interviews, and all sorts of other incredibly useful things. I'm currently paying for a 5-week trial period, and once it's over, we'll look over the results. Sure. If they're favorable, we'll keep paying for more.
Makes sense.
I actually haven't officially signed the contract yet. They gave it to me. I need to look. I've looked over most of it, but I haven't actually done
I'm curious,
everything. All the
contract is the contract necessary for the 5-week trial period, or is that just?
Yeah, it's for that 5-week trial period. So.
Okay, so it's not like the whole hog. You can opt out after the 5 weeks or whatever. It's for the 5-week trial. Got it.
Basically, yeah. So, I'm really, really excited. Like, this could be the big break I need if it works out. Like,
yeah, absolutely.
And they're also willing to help with the podcast too. They said. So yay! Or be prepared. This podcast is going to be listened to, hopefully, by a lot more people. You ready for that? You ready for our
for all that fan mail? Let's go. Bring it on.
So now officially it'll be all 7 continents.
Oh yeah, even Antarctica.
Even Antarctica. And all, was it 190-something countries, including North Korea. Good luck, guys, in that place you're in.
I want to say it's something like the International Olympic Committee recognizes like 235 or whatever. I don't know if that's
all 235 maybe countries.
Yeah, sorry, I won't fact check it on that time. Anyways.
We don't have time. Time is of the essence. So, but this agency is really professional too. Like, I probably shouldn't say the name of the agency for legal purposes, but I will say that on their website they noted that they also helped several authors, including Cornelia Funk, who I think she also wrote the Inkheart series, but I have written down here that she wrote the Dragon Rider series.
I think I've
it's
heard
a
of
famous
Inkheart.
Author. She's a famous author, and it's a famous book series that I am quite aware of, and so they've got quite the repertoire. These guys.
Sounds exciting.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting.
But I feel bad because I've never heard of Dragon Rider, considering it sounds so up my alley.
I actually never had either, but I have heard of Cornelia Funk. So I think maybe I was confusing it with Dragon Rider as a Pern.
Well, that's not this author, right? Anyway.
I have heard of Cornelia Funk though. Or is it Funke?
I think I've heard of Inkheart before, so that makes some sense to me. But anyway, yeah.
I apologize if she's not the one that wrote Inkheart, but I'm just talking on my ass.
We don't have time.
All right, keep going. It's only been 5 minutes so far. We've got time.
Well, you say that.
All right,
but yeah, be sure to update us if you're going through with it or not. Although I'm supposing that if they're really good at their job, that listeners will be able to figure that out that much easier because I'm doing it. As to my output, I finally got it in the bag about a month and a half later than I promised for the podcast, but I finished the season 1 finale of Starburst.
What? That's so cool. What is that again? No, I remember what that is.
Fitting, because we're talking about fanfiction, it is a fanfic.
Whoa!
Anyway, two relevant notes. I had too grandiose a setup, and partly due to that, partly due to my usual style, it got way lengthy. Like 5 times the usual episode length, at least.
Nice. I know you can go wordy, but that's amazing.
Well, and
for you.
it wasn't gonna win Nano by itself. That much is for sure.
Well, that's a darn
but
shame.
for the most part, I'm happy with it because of all the loose ends I've had to wrap up and all the effort to include even screen time for all the Rangers, including there were a couple from the parallel dimension that were involved too. I talked with my co-author.
I remember this. Yeah.
And as I mentioned on the podcast before, we're doing more finely tuned edits before attempting to find suitable places for a publication. Nothing major, like forums about Power Ranger and such.
Right.
I'm also wrestling with a question more than usual. Do I take part in NaNoWriMo this year? I've got a couple ideas left over, but none of them feel really surefire inspirations to get me through 50,000 words in my typical fortnight.
You do go really fast.
I guess
you can be so damn wordy when you want to. I don't think you need that much inspiration. I could just be like, write a story about a guy playing with a ball, and you could be like, okay, and then boom, I've written 20,000 words.
Well, and with Nano too, I've done challenges in the past. Like, okay, 50,000 obviously is not simple, but I've done challenges in the past. Like, I did 2 different stories, one just at work and one at home. I've done 100,000 words in a month. Like, it's, I'm trying to find ways to,
one of these days you're going to be like, screw it, I'm going to write 500,000 words. I'm going 10 times over.
Fail. and
I will do it in 2 days.
And copy paste. Anyway,
I mean, if you do it like that, then you could do it forever. But
exactly. So 500,000 words. Let's go for 1 million. Come on. What do you? I mean,
what was that? One of our skits I remember was like that super ultra NaNoWriMo tournament.
Oh, the tournament where the guy, what was his name? Chad
Thunderpin Quills, and he wrote 50,000 words in 10 minutes.
Yeah. No, I don't think I could. I don't think I could duplicate that feat unless I was copy paste spamming. Anyhow, so we had been talking about fan fiction. 2 weeks ago, we talked about continuation stuffs. That's
last week we
using the old framework. Last week we talked about adding your own original characters into it.
What are we talking about this week?
Now we're going to go a little bit further afield. Here's a fun concept: take not just 1, but 2, or even more, of your favorite things and try mashing them together.
Oh, I love mashed potatoes.
What could possibly go wrong? Can it possibly go right? The famed and very polarizing crossover fic.
I think these are hilarious. I love these. Like, the crazy franchises people have merged together. They're just so great. Like, I've seen, no joke, I've seen Land Before Time / Titanic fanfics.
What? Okay, that's amusing. I don't know how the heck they worked that out.
I don't know either. I didn't read it. I was like, I don't need to read anymore.
I don't need to read it. I don't care about
the fact that exists is enough for me to be like, good job, you. Good job.
You tried real hard there, guys.
I've also seen Warhammer 40k / Lord of the Rings / Mr. Rogers fanfics.
Oh, wow. It's always a good day in the neighborhood.
Even in the Imperium of Man, where the God Emperor, what are some other, I don't know a lot of Warhammer 40k stuff, I'm trying to think.
Where the God Hammer is given to the Nazgul. I don't know.
The God Emperor is the leader of the Nazgul.
Oh, the Nazgul. Okay, I'm sorry. I don't know Warhammer 40k.
They do have Warhammers in Warhammer.
I know it's even less than you do. It would be really bad advertising if they didn't have hammers in Warhammer. Come on. Sorry.
No, they do have hammers, but they mainly just use to build stuff, like a normal hammer. They're not really war hammers.
I'm sorry. Oh, boy.
Anyways, there's more that I said here in my notes that I'll definitely read out as we do this episode, but after looking it up, I actually couldn't find any more that I wanted. So.
Well, I mean,
I forgot.
some of them aren't so crazy. Some of them just make sense. And so, like, wow, of course.
Like Star Wars, Star Trek.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles crossed over with Power Rangers at one point. Of course, they crossed over with Batman at one point. That kind of a thing. There was
recently, earlier this year, I believe, there was a direct-to-video movie of Batman with the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. So
yeah. But I mean, some of those crossovers, it was bound to happen somewhere, and it makes a lot of sense. Land Before Time and Titanic are not compatible in any way, so of course that probably took a little bit more thinking. How can I make that work?
Think of any connecting tissue.
Or did he just invent the whole dang thing? Like there was some magical warp that took Littlefoot and the gang all to the Titanic.
All the way onto that iceberg. And they're like, oh, it's cold. Oh,
wow. Talk about doubly bad now. That iceberg.
I'm thinking, I really should have read it, actually. Because I'm trying to find any connecting tissue.
You're trying to picture this. Yeah. Apparently you need to read this now. That's the answer. Anyways, yeah. I mean, connecting threads, if they have them, they're nice. Right?
Yeah. I'm sorry, I'm still just... My mind's racing. How could they...
Do you want me to read the rest of your notes?
Yes! Actually, I want to think...
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so the Titanic is like a meteor, maybe.
Well, I mean, you could be, metaphorical about this or not, but point
Titanic's
being,
a meteor. The iceberg is like the Earth.
I'm gonna go ahead and quote. This is Donald's notes here, folks. I think as long as they have something in common, whether it's a theme, an idea, a setting, or whatever, then crossover fics can work.
Yes, like you've done Bionicle Rangers in the past, which makes a ton of sense. Since both works have color-coded teams of heroes with special powers and weapons fighting the monster of the week, so...
Yeah, that one actually... Bionicle Rangers was a very interesting thing, because it was also a self-insert story.
I've forgotten that detail.
Actually, it was both of us, my friend, so I hope you don't forget. Anyway.
I forgot that I was in it too.
Yeah.
Yay!
Yeah, so the two of us were going around collecting Kanohi masks, and it allowed us to transform into...
I remember now. Yes. That's right.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll save my other piece to the part where I have my notes. But anyways, yeah, so that was a thing. And I do want to mention, that fic did not go as far as I had originally planned it, because I probably realized better and or just stopped making time to write.
Right. Of course, maybe the fun of crossover fics is throwing together two or more franchises that don't have anything in common and seeing what happens. In that case, go for it. We can't stop you.
I mean, this is fan fiction after all, and we might be fans, but you are also a fan, and you're a different fan than we are, if that makes sense.
Right.
Anyway, I honestly, you say nothing in common. I'm kind of thinking Land Before Time Titanic fits the bill.
Yeah, again, I'm really struggling.
Anyways, all right, well, I guess I'll go now. No matter what anyone tells you, simply wanting to crush two disparate series together is not guaranteed to work by any means.
Right.
Sure, there's probably some shock value in attempting it, and you might be the amazing author to prove us wrong about Barbie and Transformers actually working together in a story, but desire alone
that couldn't work from a legal standpoint. One's Mattel and the other's Hasbro.
It's fan fiction. Actually, I did not think about that aspect of it, to be entirely honest.
See, Transformers and My Little Pony, that could work great, because they're both Hasbro.
Well, Transformers and Power Rangers, just watch it happen now that Hasbro has that property. Anyway.
There you go.
Point being, though, desire alone won't cut it with these stories.
Right.
The trick is that both or all of the properties you bring in have their own strengths and weaknesses.
Right, exactly.
If they're too similar, it could train wreck. But also, if they're too different, it couldn't naturally come together in the first place.
Right.
This has the potential to blow up in your face, like a bad chemistry experiment. But if it works, and you magically found the cure to cancer, I mean, I guess the equivalent fic would be something extremely girly, foreign, and animated with something extraordinarily testosterone-heavy, domestic, and live action. The price is worth it. I'm all for crazy ideas, but don't be surprised if you get terribly vocal people from both, or all, of the franchises in those fan bases contained in your story ragging on you because their favorite is slighted. Like, if you
Littlefoot and Rose, whatever her last name is, can't be together.
Well, more like in that example that, oh, well, Sarah got no screen time at all. She's my favorite. What are you doing,
It was
you horrible
replaced
monster?
by Molly Brown.
The unsinkable Molly Brown on the Titanic. How ironic. Anyway.
I'm really thinking about what they could, how could they converge?
I don't see, because there's too much of a time lag. But anyway.
I got it!
God.
I found one connecting tissue. Now, granted, it does not have anything to do with the stories themselves, but both Titanic and Land Before Time have the same composer, James Horner. Boom!
That's freaking 6 degrees of separation connection right there.
So James Horner gets sucked into his compositions, the world of his compositions, and gets in Land Before Time and Titanic. I did it!
Oh my god, that is totally not what this guy did, I bet. I bet it was a time
I'm assuming
portal.
not, but...
I bet it was a time portal. But anyways. Oh my god.
I can't believe I did that. Wow.
Congratulations.
Hold on, let me actually check to make sure that James Horner actually did do Land Before Time. I'm fairly certain he did.
So professional.
Keep going with whatever you were saying.
Oh my god. But, you know, but these fans, if their favorite gets slighted, they will not hesitate to tell you about it. And it's not going to agree with your perspective, so duly warned.
Yes.
That said, these are honestly less challenging to invent a conflict, because the very act of these franchises encountering the other at all is the conflict.
Right.
It's why every time you have a Sentai crossover special that the teams fight each other before
Yes, he
they
did
end
do
up
Land Before
reconciling.
Time. Okay.
What?
Good we got that. He did do both Land Before Time and Titanic, yes.
Okay.
So glad we got that straightened out.
But like with Sentai teams, you know, you're seeing these strange suits that you've never seen before, and you don't know what their motives are, and the conflict comes from them not understanding each other before they figure it out and team up.
Right.
You know. However, like I just said, and describing basically any crossover film within the Sentai franchise, the story is incredibly formulaic if you're not careful.
Right, exactly.
But the combination is where the test lies.
Yes.
As I've said on the podcast many times, there's no such thing as a new idea in the year 2019. It's the combination of them where we have left to mine creativity. So,
right.
You know, putting things together that would be impossible, putting things together that make absolutely no sense, that's what your creativity is if you're writing crossover fics exclusively,
right.
You know?
Well, now that I'm thinking about it, though, Land Before Time / Titanic is oddly brilliant.
And not just because of James Horner. Both are
no,
heading to extinction.
That's literally the only reason.
Both are heading to extinction. That's the only common thread, but that doesn't mean that that's
surely there's another one if I dig deep.
Okay, okay, you're talking about a degree of separation between Land Before Time and Titanic, but I'm thinking about thematically.
Right. No, thematically there might not be. And who knows, maybe Littlefoot was actually voiced by a super young Leonardo DiCaprio. Probably not, though.
Garen freaking dainty it. That's not true. Anyways, crossover fics. They are amazing, they are horrifying, and anywhere in between. So.
Yes, and we got up some questions that we can answer here off the cuff.
Yeah, since we didn't have time to plan them.
But we can still add some stuff here. So, like, sure. All right, so what, in your personal opinion, and this accounts to both you and me, are the best two types of original works to cross over? Like, i.e. fantasy with sci-fi, suspense with romance, rom-com with horror, or like certain subgenres or certain types of character drama or whatever. I don't know. Or does it matter?
I mean, I think to a point, it matters, of course. I believe that if you have things that are relatively close by, it's going to write itself easier.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
if you're involving the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles with Batman, of course, both are crime fighters, and so they have that natural bonding point,
Right.
and they come together, and the styles are a little different because they obviously aren't the same character, but they can
But they also all
figure
are
out
both
how to
ninjas,
work
too.
together.
They're both ninjas too. Well, at least they have ninja training.
Fair enough. But as far as, like, best two types, I'm going to say something modern with something ancient.
I.e., Titanic with Land Before Time, which is
Well,
old-timey versus
okay,
prehistoric.
Titanic for us is not modern. It'd be like Land Before Time and Tron.
Ooh, now I'm intrigued.
Well, like, but here's the thing. Remember, I said that the conflict itself is them meeting at all is the conflict.
Right.
And so with that, you have something that is so far apart that there's a bunch of conflict right there. And from a storytelling perspective, it's easy to mine that. That said, I honestly don't know if Tron Land Before Time would work as an idea.
Yeah, there is absolutely zero connecting tissue there, as far as I know.
So on the other hand, you know, if you have something that the tone is similar, like here's an idea: have somebody who is maybe a smart, an agent of some intelligence service, and he's interacting with somebody who's in a position of power that does a similar thing, but is not obviously the same kind of agent.
Right.
So
That could
here's
work.
a random example. What if you combined Dirk Pitt, who's adventurer extraordinaire, but his main job is to salvage shipwrecks and stuff, with James Bond?
That could work. Makes more sense than Indiana Jones because of the time difference.
Right. And so that kind of a thing that, you know, those would work naturally. They dovetail naturally well together. And so I think finding two properties that do that, whatever the time period, whatever the shenanigans to put them together, would still work better than something so disparate, something so not the same. Even though the conflict is easier for the other. Because, you know, Tron world, Land Before Time characters, does not compute.
Pardon the computer pun, you know, with Tron, but
Right. But, like, that... So the best two types are types that, you know, have some synergy, if that makes sense.
it does make sense.
Or, you know, are so vastly apart that you're focused on the conflict of them possibly meeting at all. So that's my thought.
Okay.
But I don't know what you have to add to best two types. You mentioned a couple of good examples. I'll give it that. But I don't know if that's what you're going
I'm
with.
just all for, like, don't make it too obvious. Like, so Star Wars and Star Trek, like Lord of the Rings and Game of Thrones, or like those are a bit too similar. I guess Lord of the Rings and Game of Thrones have some differences. Well, obviously Star Wars. You get what I'm saying, but basically something that's like try Lord of the Rings with Star Wars. How about that? Like that's just something that's more interesting. And that's why I'm fascinated by this Land Before Time / Titanic one.
You really should go look it up and read it now, I guess.
I'm sure it's lost to the ether, but
You say that, but you obviously remembered it enough to
I
write
also
about
kind
it
of
here,
like
so.
just wondering. I like being just keeping it a mystery, you know? What could it possibly be?
Well, I mean, come on. If it's bothering you that much to know what the connection is, that you had to spend that much time brainstorming to grasp at the James Horner straw,
that's just OCD
maybe you
there.
should
and
see.
I feel so much better now that I've had to come up with one creative tissue. And I'm trying my best not to try and do the same for Tron and Land Before Time.
Please don't. Unless Jeff Bridges was a narrator of Land Before... No, he wasn't, I know.
He was not. There was a narrator of Land Before Time, but I do not believe it was Jeff Bridges.
No, it was not. It was... I know! Anyway. So the best two types are ones that, you know, work together, is what you're saying as well.
What about the worst? Like, is there... And if you can think of something... If there is something worse, like if there's something that doesn't work, and if there is, could there be ways to make it work? I personally don't think there is a worst. I think go whatever you want, unless, like you said, it makes like absolutely no sense. But even then, it might be interesting. How do you make it work?
And that's the thing. Like, the conflict is important with crossover fics, and it's right there in the germ. It's because they're crossing over, and so I think that your creativity, listeners included. Your creativity is such that, you can make any two properties work together. But worst types to cross, like I mentioned earlier, if they're so disparate, it's a lot harder to make a story that's compelling.
Right.
That said...
But that also would be part of the challenge,
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that obviously is why you're writing a crossover fic, because you're combining a bunch of things that you like. Speaking of a bunch of things, we've been treating it as if it's two, but I think the worst types of things to cross are when you cross way too many freaking things.
I mean, there's a franchise for this. It's called Super Smash Bros.
But that's a fighting game, and the story is not important.
I guess that's true. There is a story to it. Which
there is a story mode, I know, but
I'm sure it's absolute nonsense. I haven't played it,
But I mean, one of the things about Super Smash Brothers is it's solving the old playground debate of who would win, and the answer is it depends on who's playing.
That's a darn good point. Well, we know it's not Master Hand, because I think he's usually the bad guy. But and you can't play as him, so...
No, you
it's
can't
anyone except for Master Hand.
Wait, I thought you could in Brawl.
Maybe you... I don't know. I haven't played any of them.
I don't know.
I like that you can play as the Duck Hunt people.
Okay.
That's funny. Or the Wii Fit Trainer.
Can we throw out, though, that as a gladiator combat type game, that this doesn't really apply to a thing like Super Smash Brothers.
Right. What about, like, Ready Player One? Or, like...
Ready Player One was a novel.
I know, but it was also a movie, so...
Well, and it made into a movie.
But it's not really a crossover so much as just references.
Yeah, so. I don't know enough about that story to say. But my point being is this. If you include all of your favorites, the more you include, the more chance it blows up.
Yeah.
With the Super Smash Brothers game, it's over in a couple minutes. You can change your character, and how they came together doesn't matter.
Nope.
With a story like this, a crossover, how they came together is crucial, and how they interact is the meat of your story. So it's not over necessarily, and the more things you have to balance, again, it's a juggling act.
Yes.
Sure, it'd be really cool if Marvel and DC and Toei decided to play ball.
Image
and let...
Vertigo.
I was naming Toei for a reason. Would you let me say it?
What are some other ones?
Because you like overextending my jokes.
Dark Horse Comics.
And so you can have the Avengers, the Justice League, and all of Super Sentai in the same battle. But why would there be anything that they need to fight together?
I don't know. Thanos, Darkseid, and whoever and whatever her name is in Power Rangers, the witch. They all team up.
It's funny you mentioned Thanos and Darkseid because obviously one is based on the other.
Yes.
The witch you're thinking of, his name is Rita, and actually...
That's right, Rita Repulsa! It was on the tip of my tongue.
It wouldn't be a good character because she's actually not the highest up in the United Alliance of Evil, which is actually a thing in Power Rangers.
Who is, then?
Dark Spectre. But anyway...
Okay, Dark Spectre, Darkseid, and Thanos. They decide to form a brotherhood. Okay.
Anyways... but I am all for creativity, but I am also about reining in your scope.
Yes.
With a crossover.
Yes.
So I think the worst types to cross are when you have more than a set number. Whatever that set number is for you, because it's going to be different from mine, so I'm not going to say what it is, but more than a set number of franchises, that's the worst. You could still make it work,
No, I definitely think it could work, but you have to be very, very careful.
but it's a real pain in the neck. So that's what I'm going to say. All right, next one you have here. What percentage... I'm sorry, did you get a chance to answer that question?
No, that I think we answered it pretty well. But I was going to say, like, if there is just 2, I guess this could work if this is more than 2. But what percentage of each story should be represented? Should it always be 50-50, or 33-33-33, or 45,
equal
45?
in the words that are
Equal,
easy to say without
basically.
numbers?
I think if it's just 2, then yeah, I think it should be pretty close to equal. Otherwise, it'd be kind of weird. But
Yes and no. Like, you might have a different opinion on this than me, Donald, but I think that it depends on you. This has little to do with story writing, but I'm going to give you an example from my own life. There is a person who I care a great deal about that was involved in my fraternity in college. He was not at my school, he was at a different one. But I got to know him really well, and we had a lot of conversations, and it turned out that he is also very much into barbershop harmony, like I am.
oh,
Both of us are members of those 2 organizations, right?
right,
For me, I know a lot about barbershop.
yes,
Like, way too much. I don't bring it up on the podcast because it's totally irrelevant to writing. Or
Right.
writing, excuse me. But,
we do have that sweet outro though at the end every episode now that is a testament to your barbershop skills, even
Well,
with
thank
yourself. But
thank you. Point being that, like, I could name fairly random trivia points and have an intelligent discussion about barbershop. I love Sinfonia. It's a music fraternity, and that's so totally me. But I can't tell you much about the particulars. Now,
Yes.
this other gentleman is involved in both organizations. And he likes Sinfonia as much as I like barbershop, to the point where he can name names of people in certain positions, in trivia questions, and he is that
nice. Nice. That's cool. I mean, it's also
And, I mean,
really dorky, but that's okay.
guy. Well, I mean...
we all have our interests.
Well, I mean, that's... The point I'm making is this. If I was going to write a fanfic, including Sinfonia and barbershop, which I don't need to write a fanfic about it, but that's beside the point.
That's
If
a
I was
weird-
going to write it, I would focus more on the barbershop aspect.
Yeah,
If he were writing the same fic, he'd focus more on the Sinfonia thing.
that makes sense.
So, I don't know if there's a set percentage. Like, obviously, you have both of them, therefore you need to use both, or all, however many. Does it need to be exactly equal? Frankly, that's a tall order. Now,
Yeah, I
I'm
don't know
not saying
about
it's...
exact, but I
Well,
guess
and that's-
I just feel like
I don't want to feel like you're shortchanging one.
yeah,
for
that's
the
the thing. I agree. Like, I don't want it to be like, oh, it's really just this franchise story, just featuring a couple of characters from this other story.
It's a Power Rangers fic that features TMNT as opposed to, their co-build, if that makes
Right.
sense.
Yeah,
and
no,
so and remember earlier I said that fans are gonna, let you know if you disappoint them because you screwed over their favorite character.
Yeah. I absolutely want equal representation of Littlefoot, Jack, Sarah, Rose, Molly
about
Brown, Spike, other characters from Titanic, and other characters from Land Before Time. Bill Paxton, I think Bill Paxton was in it.
Well, not as Bill Paxton, but yeah. Well, I mean, and so that's the thing. Like, if somebody's I really hate how we keep using the Land Before Time Titanic thing, but it's
It's
so
just the most,
it's so perfect.
it's the most ridiculous, like, mind-boggling one.
Well, I couldn't feasibly talk about My Little Pony Transformers, or else that'd be a good one. But it'd be like somebody saying, you did a horrible job because Littlefoot wasn't the featured character, even though you tried your best to include Littlefoot equally to the other people. And there will be fans like that. The percentage that feels right to you is not going to feel right to them. Also,
Right.
with fans, they may like one source, but not all of them.
Right.
They couldn't give two rips about Power Rangers. They came because it said featuring TMNT, and then all of a sudden it said, well, wait a second, where in the heck are the Turtles?
It's who cares about these people at Angel Grove?
And so I can't guarantee that it'd be 50-50 anyway, or equal, depending on how many sources you have, but I still think it's worth shooting for what feels like, you're trying your best at equal representation. It's not literally going to be split down the middle.
Right.
No way.
Right.
But you should still try.
I think so too. Like, I think if there's more, if there's like more than 3, I think it's okay for some of them to be like a little like, oh, it's just 1 or 2 characters. But like,
well, and that's something else worth considering too. If you don't throw everything worth noting from that franchise, if you just have a cameo because you think it's important and you want to put them in there, then go for it. But don't expect to put them on the top line with everybody else if that's the situation.
Right, exactly. All right, well, we've got some other questions here, but I think we kind of covered them in like in our other ones, except for what are some good examples of crossover fix. But actually, I don't have any examples.
Honestly, I was gonna say I don't really have one.
I didn't do a lot of research, guys.
Well, and we didn't have that much time to get this stuff set up with the schedule changing on me.
If you listeners managed to find a copy of this Land Before Time / Titanic one, let me know how it is. Don't tell me how it works. I want the mystery to remain intact, but. And if you would like to contact us about this...
Well, I was... Oh, okay. Hold on.
Oh, okay. How are you going to ruin my segue? Okay.
Well, no, it wasn't... I wasn't trying to ruin your segue was fine. But that last question, though, is there anything we recommend they absolutely avoid?
I don't know. I think we cover... I don't think there really is. I think... like...
Don't
if
think
there is, I think
we... Additional, or you don't think there's anything that absolutely you cannot do this?
I don't think anything additionally. Like,
Okay.
I think...
I just wanted to check before we passed up the opportunity. I'm sorry for ruining your segue.
No worries.
But that said, if you have... You know what? Maybe you want to recommend some crossover fix that we can have a mea culpa about or something. Maybe there's an idea you're trying to put together and you're looking for, well, how can I make this equal? If you have questions like that or about anything related to fanfics so far that we've talked about, please, absolutely, get in touch with us. Let us know if we can read your stuff on the air and, tell other people about it too, of course.
Yes.
But if you want to get in touch with us...
With this marketing agency, we might actually have more people respond. I mean, sending us stuff. Of course, counting all the thousands upon thousands of emails we get every day.
That always are like, please don't read this on air. I'm embarrassed.
Yeah,
anyway,
exactly. We like to respect their wishes, but we assure you there are thousands.
So overflowing my mailbox. Anyway, if you want to get in touch with us, it's pretty easy. You can go to the Matthew Donald Creator website and use the contact page or the email address mattd, that's with 2 T's, at MatthewDonaldCreator.com from the site or from your own personal email. If you have general or specific questions, episode ideas, we'd love to hear that as well.
That'd be cool.
If you're going to talk to one of us in particular, please specify Donald or David. If you're interested in following Donald, professional social media stuff, not counting this contract thing he was talking about, we'll see how that goes. Go ahead.
We will see. You can follow me at Matthew Donald Creator on Facebook, at Matthew Donald64 on Twitter, and Matthew Donald64 on Instagram. Why 64? Because that's how many franchises I've combined in my ultimate crossover fanfic. Which franchises? I'll never tell. One of them's probably Bionicle, though.
And one of them might very well be Power Rangers after I insisted because of how important it was to me. And he has 64 freaking franchises.
Okay, so that's 2? Okay. The other 62, guess.
Just take a guess. Hey, if you got guesses, why don't you go to Twitter and Donald can either confirm or deny them. I'm serious. Yes. It's funny. That'd be amazing.
My Twitter feed would be flooded with all this, like, put this franchise
Why
in.
didn't you put Land Before Time in there with Titanic? No.
Oh, I was thinking about that anyways. Okay, now I have to change it to Matthew Donald 66 on...
No. But you do probably need to keep a master list. Or, no, that's not true. You have the fic, so you should probably just make a list and make sure you're counting them off.
Even reading the fic, though, it's hard to tell, like, how many, unless you're, like, actively counting.
Well, I mean,
there's just so many people here.
Well, there's so many people, it's kind of a Where's Waldo thing. And aside from that, because with so many characters and so little time, relatively, to dwell on them, they kind of show up for like a second and you blink, you miss them kind of a thing.
Like, oh, right? Look, there's Tahu from Bionicle.
Bye-bye. And that's all Bionicles involved. No, I'm kidding.
Oh, look, there's the Green Ranger, whatever his name is.
You really should watch Mighty Morphin.
I'm still working through Zero Ranger here.
Oh, are you working through it? Anyway, that's another time. Anyhow,
until
thanks
next
for putting
time.
up with our stuff, listeners. We'll be back next week with more. If you want a spoiler, all I gotta say is we're getting a little lovey-dovey up in here.
Oh, God.
But you'll figure out what we're talking about next week.
Yes.
And until then, keep writing, listeners. Thanks for paying attention to us at The Writ with the two twits who talk about writing.
I'm Matt Donald.
And I'm Matt David. We'll see you next time.
See ya.
The Writ